I wonder, I'm just thinking now, like if I got really upset with the left, a progressive friend recently who did a similar thing. And I don't think I'd have been as bothered by someone who was more open to making fun of. I mean, okay, what I want to ask is there room to make fun of people's identities? Because there sort of was. And maybe that can lead to bad stuff. But also on the other side, this was a guy who said these things to me. He just said a few things every time we went for lunch or whatever. He was just like, oh yeah, you're not going to pay, are you? That kind of thing. Right. It so happened I wasn't paying. No, I was paying. But he was making those kind of, and I thought if that was someone else, it would still annoy me because I think, it's so boring joke. What a boring joke you've said. But okay. But because it was somebody who I know is so sensitive to every other minority, that's what hurt me.
Was he a member of a minority?
No.
Okay.
American.
Okay,
no.
That's not a minority.
No.
So there's a key point there, really key point, which is you said it's kind of a boring joke, and you said that in passing as if that's not the key issue, but that is the key issue. The key issue is not the joke, not the fact that he was making jokes about a minority, it's the nature of the joke. So people get very, very animated about jokes. So you can't make jokes about X, Y, and Z. You can't make jokes about the Holocaust. You can't make jokes about minorities or whatever. It is difficult to make jokes about other minorities that are not your own now. I think that is difficult, and there's a whole conversation to be had about whether you can or you can't. But the more important thing is, what does the actual joke say? And that joke says that Jews are mean. Right, Jews are mean, and that is not something that is a malign idea of Jews, a racist idea of Jews, and that is not a joke that should be, given as license to be said by someone who's not Jewish. I mean, so here's the thing, right? I used to do this joke, which is quite a good joke, and I'm slightly sad to lose it from my repertoire. It's a good joke, but this is it. It's said I had a friend, which is true, a best friend, who became a Buddhist, but he was Jewish to begin with, so he was like half Jewish, half Buddhist, which is someone who believes you should renounce all your material possessions but still keep the receipts, right? And it used to get a big laugh, and I stopped doing it because I thought I should stop doing jokes, even as a Jew, which are about how we are mean, because unfortunately the association of Jews with money, because Jews are rich, as my progressive friend said, has led to all sorts of problems for Jews. At the end of the line, it leads to Jews' houses being burned down. However, I do this joke, which is there is an Englishman, a Frenchman, and a Jew sat on a park bench, and the Englishman says, "I'm so tired and thirsty, I must have beer." And the Frenchman says, "I'm so tired and thirsty, I must have wine." And the Jew says, "I'm so tired and thirsty, I must have diabetes." and I think that joke plays on another stereotype of Jews, but the point is it's not a malign one, right? I don't think anyone's burnt down any Jews' houses because some Jews are hypochondriacs, right? And so I think that's okay.
Yeah,
right?
I'm sitting here rubbing my hands because they're cold, thinking what happens if they get too cold, as you said that. There's a Gervais one about the Holocaust. I don't know if I can't remember.
Is it the one he stole from me?
Maybe. You had to be there?
Yeah, he stole.
Do you want to tell that?
He did steal from me, and it annoys me that Ricky did that.
He's your mate, isn't he?
He is my mate. Yeah, he's my mate. But he did do a thing, which was on
Seinfeld.
He's on Seinfeld's Coffee with Comedians in Cars. I haven't actually seen it, but people have told me.
Yes.
So I say it's not my joke, because that's not true. I heard it from a Jewish academic called Devorah Baum, who's a friend of mine, and I think they were discussing whether or not on Ricky and Jerry's show whether you could do jokes on the Holocaust, and he mentioned this one. What annoys me that he didn't say, this is just purely shallow, he didn't say I heard this joke from David Baddiel, because he definitely did.
Can you tell it?
Yeah, the joke is, it's a good example of a Holocaust joke that you can definitely tell, because the idea that you can't tell jokes about the Holocaust, you have to deconstruct the individual joke. So this joke is beautiful. So after the war, a Holocaust survivor dies of natural causes, goes to heaven. When he gets to heaven, God asks the survivor to tell him a Holocaust joke. So the survivor does. The survivor tells God a Holocaust joke. And God says, "That's not funny." And the survivor says, "Well, I guess you had to be there." And what I love about that joke is, obviously, it's not a dehumanizing Holocaust joke, of which there are many, right? And it also is very profound as an atheist, because it says something which is like, I don't believe in God, but if I did believe in God, I might have that belief taken away from me by the years 39 to 45. I mean, there's a much simpler version of it, actually, which is that Larry David, brilliantly, I don't know if I should tell this joke. Okay, it's your show, so I will tell it, but just to make it clear, this is a terrible, not him, what he did was great, but on the same show, Harriet Harman I'm not going to tell the joke. The joke is a good example of a joke I think I shouldn't tell. But Harriet Harman, who was trying to, on This Week, do you remember that used to be on with Andrew Neil? She was trying to talk about jokes and what jokes you can't tell. And she chose a Holocaust joke. I'm just going to tell the setup. And the setup was, how do you get 100 Jews in a mini metro, right? And I'll leave it to you what the answer was, but it, involved the ashtray, right? And actually, Andrew Neil said, "Don't tell anymore. That's horrible." And it's an interesting moment because she was trying to say, "But some jokes are horrible," and even in the telling, she was shut down. Whatever. Anyway, in the same week, I remember, same week, Larry David hosted SNL, and he did a whole bit. Firstly, incredibly edgily about how some of the names who were being Me Too'd at the time, the big names, were Jewish, right? And how he found that difficult, but he talked about it. It's really kind of extraordinary. But then he said, but the thing is, Jews are very interested in sex. They're very interested in sex. And he said, if I was in Auschwitz, I'd been in Auschwitz, I'd still have been checking out the women behind the barbed wire on the other side. And then he does a whole bit about saying, hey, when this is over, do you want to have some latkes? Do you want to go out? What do you want to do? And then he goes, what? Is it me or is it like the whole thing? Right? Yeah. And I love that bit. And do you know why I love that bit? A, it's funny. But really importantly, the mini metro joke, what does it do? It does the Nazis' work. It dehumanizes Jews again. Sure. What does Larry David's routine do? It humanizes those people. Yeah. It says they're behind barbed wire and they're destined for the gas chambers and they're being made into vermin, but they were interested in sex and dinner and they were funny. And that's what's beautiful about it. And both of them are Holocaust jokes. So my point is about your mate is he's doing a boring joke. He's also doing a joke that leads to the destruction of Jews very far down the line.
Yeah. Well, I don't speak to him anymore.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Not in like a we had a big, because that's not the way I would ever do it. It was just like I just stopped sort of responding as much gradually over a period of years.
It's interesting that you say I'm interested in the fact that he's like almost exact type that I'm sort of talking to.
Might be him.
In Jews Don't Count. When I wrote that book, when the film went out, I got like lots of Jews talking to me about it, and generally Jews in general are pretty lovely about it and sort of grateful that someone's articulating all this. But in a way, they're not the audience. I mean, they are the audience, so in terms of feeling less alone, but I guess the audience or the people that I'm supposed to be speaking to are progressives. Mm-mm. And some progressives react very badly to the idea that they might have unconscious bias against Jews. Jeremy Corbyn, I believe, when this was put to him, a particular thing was put to him on newsagents, which is I had been on it before, and I was talking about the mural, and I used the phrase because they asked me if he was an anti-Semite. I said not at the front of his head, and that was put to him, and he seemed to get annoyed about it and said, "How does David Baddiel know what's at the front and back of my head? Is he my psychiatrist?" And Frank, when I told him that, said, "Does he think all psychiatrists are Jews?"
I was thinking that.
Which I think was funny. But I realised something then, which is I should have used the words. I shouldn't have said front of his head. I should have used the word unconscious bias.
Yes, I should have
spoken their language, because their language would say, I think it's possible that he has unconscious bias towards Jews, because to say, well, I don't, is to say, okay, so there's something different about this minority, because I thought all members who are not of a minority might show unconscious bias to them, but somehow not against Jews, right? So anyway, so most progressives, or some progressives, find it difficult to accept that they might. But one guy wrote to me on social media and said that he'd read the book and he'd realised on reading it that he did harbour lots of assumptions about Jews, including the one that your mate is no longer your mate, which is that they're basically all rich and comfortable and privileged and fine, and that he would now try and rethink it, and he realised that anti-Semitism is the racism that sneaks past you. And that's true. I think that's what a lot of people find difficult and complicated about understanding what anti-Semitism is, because it's not as obvious.
You catch it on the edge of a remark.
Yeah, you catch it on the edge of a remark. You catch it in really unconscious bias.
I'm quoting, I think, Hitchens. Right. I'm not smart enough to come up with those sentences.
You are pretty smart, actually. You are smart. Well, you're quite self-deprecating.
Well, one has to be.
Yeah, no? I'm not.
No.